Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. We're just, of course, waiting around for some people to show up. As tonight, I sent out a bunch of invites. We're just waiting to see if people will actually come in. I think we'll have at least one or two of them show up, hopefully, at some point. Tonight's kind of more of a free form night, with it being a holiday and stuff. So we'll be talking, neat stuff, probably focusing in a little more on cartoons though. But anyways, I gotta just go do something real quick. I'll be right back. Turn some music on for you while we're waiting. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So, anyways, we're just waiting on some more people to show up. I know some people have got their own shows we're doing right now, and I'm just trying to get those finished up, looking over. Papa Bears, Papa Bears, Papa Bears, Papa Bears. Fantastic, fantastic. Hong Kong Fooey, number one super guy. Kong Kong Fooey, quicker than the human eye. Hong Kong Fooey, it's terrific. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. Have a modern family. From the town of Bedrock, they're a place right out of history. Root on, courtesy of Fragility, when you're with the Flintstones. Have a yabba dabba do time, a dabba do time, but have a gay old time. Anyway, I need to once again step away from the computer. I'll be right back. Music on for you guys. Feeling the cat, wonderful, wonderful cat. Every time we come again, every time we come again. He likes the cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. Every day we come again. Hong Kong Fooey, number one super guy. Hong Kong Fooey, quicker than a human eye. Hong Kong Fooey, perfect. Tommy Bear, bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. He'll be over in a moment. My little pony, my little pony. Every day and night, you know it. My little pony, my little pony. Every time you know you go in. Uh-oh, Sylvanian family, a part of mine. Sylvanian family. Get along, gang, get along, gang. Each one is special in his own way. Coming about, get along, gang, get along, gang. Get up with it, get along, gang. Everyone is okay. Get up with a get along game. Oh, get up with a get along game. Everyone is okay. Get up with a get along game. Oh, get up. On moonlit sun, when the cowboys roam, everyone wanna go by the code of the West. On moonlit sun, Pokemon Master, your heart beats faster. You know you can't stop. Pokemon Pow Wow. So don't let it get to your head, young trainer. Road is long and filled with danger. Everyone says they deserve to be a poke. Never a Pokemon. First you kick it in Kanto. Then you head to Johto. Incense and peppermints are surely to find. Incense and peppermint, I know you'll be mine. Everybody shout! Come on, let's hang out. It's time for the groovy to get together. It's gonna be how funny they can be. But time for the groovy ghoulie show. Do. Lassie and the Rescue Rangers. Lassie and the Rescue Rangers. Let's see now. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. 5-year mission to go where no one has gone before. Ooh, ooh. Overtures, cut the lights, hit the hits, the nights. No more rehearsing, learning our part. We know every part by heart. Do. When all the night will hit, on with the show, this is it. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish when I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Toot. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish when I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Goldar. Hey, Jason. What is your favorite skinwalker? I don't have a favorite skinwalker. Did you watch No, I haven't seen the new JoJo yet. If you can like and share the stream, it'd help. We get some more people in here. Anything more you want to ask about Jason or anything like that? That's kind of an open mic, open panel night tonight. We're waiting on some more of the panelists to show up. Let's see. What semester takes so long? I don't know if any particular semester takes the longest. I'd say between the two, I would say, well, let's see. I'd say the second semester usually takes the longest because first semester, well, I guess it depends upon where you're going to school. If your school starts like here in the States where it would start in like August or September, I'd say the longest part is the second semester, but because you do have kind of the holidays at the end of that first semester with like you got Thanksgiving, you got Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, which all take a huge chunk of that time. So probably second. I mean, if you're in Japan where they start school in April, then it might be something a little different. Let's see. Did you watch it? Yeah, I've seen Index. You're talking about a certain magical index, and yeah, I've seen all of the different. I think I've seen most of them, anyways. Index, Index 2, Railgun, Railgun S. What does blatant mean, and how do you use it in a sentence? All right, blatant is a pretty common. Blatant means obvious, like the blatant use of force. Usually means obvious or straightforward. No disguising. This is. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Opinion of Skylar McIntosh. Again, I don't know. You've asked me that before, Jason. I don't know who Skylar McIntosh is. I don't think I've heard their work before. So I really, really can't say. I can probably look her up though, since you keep asking me about her. Skylar McIntosh, born September. So she's got a birthday coming up where she turns 31. Yeah, Black Clover's additional voices, and yeah, as I said, I don't think I know a lot of her work. Chemo Loney. Yeah, I probably haven't seen a lot of the shows she's been on, and even the few that I may have, she's kind of more like probably been just more behind the scenes, um, not really at the forefront of anything. What would you do if you were stranded in the desert and the only thing you saw was a camel? I don't know. I just, knowing me, I'd just just face a particular direction, just walk. That'd be the only thing I could do. I mean, I don't see myself being stranded in a desert. Knowing me, I would just face the direction and walk until I got back to civilization. There we go. Hey, RJ.
You haven't been in radio silence for 22 minutes, have you?
Well, I've been doing like little monologues here and there, and I've just been kind of having a conversation here with Jason Myers. Is Vic Mignogna done anime? He's doing anime with Anime Matsuri, Jason, and then he's also adding. Did you watch Blue? No, I haven't seen. Yeah, Jason comes in and will ask a bunch of random questions. So,
nothing wrong with random questions. But,
yeah,
it's he's doing a convention appearance here soon too.
Who? Jason Myers?
No, not Jason. Well, Jason might be going to conventions. I don't know his schedule, but Vic is doing a convention appearance here real soon.
Well, I know I think he just had one in August. I think he last week, about a week or so ago, he had one at UltraCon. Did you hear he just got signed to another one? Or did he?
See, he is coming to Super Mega Fest.
Okay.
I do not know where that's at. But they just announced it on the 2nd. Okay, so that's in New England. Now I've got the location. And I've got a website, supermegafest.com.
Well, let me see if they have it listed on here on FanCons or not, because that's usually where I go to get my information. I didn't hear any, of course. I haven't. Whoa! Now I'm echoing.
You sound fine to me. I sent you the link to the Super Mega Fest website.
Oh, in the private.
His convention is the same weekend as my convention at Archon.
Oh, okay. And that's going to be what, the 30th, right?
September 30th, Saturday, and then October 1st and 2nd.
All right, so let's see. So that might be one that's not listed on here for FanCons. So fancons.com, animecons.com. I don't have it there, but
well, he's on their website. I just verified that. Wow.
Let's see who else might be there as well.
I've got the list pulled up. This is quite. I mean, if you're a Beatles fan, Pete Best is going to be there. Right. Do you know who Pete Best is?
Not really.
Pete Best was the original drummer for the Beatles. They fired him to hire Ringo.
Okay. Well, aside from Vic, of course, among the names I know, I think Christy McNichol is going to be there, and I believe she was on Empty Nest with Richard Mulligan.
Richard Master, she was on Family.
Huh?
She was on Family. I didn't know she was on Empty Nest with Richard Mulligan. I know that show pretty well.
Yeah. Let's see. Richard Master's going to be there. Now, I know him more from Picket Fences, but I know he also had a guest spot on MASH. In fact, MeTV just announced the other day that starting next Monday, they're going to be doing a special 50-year anniversary week of episodes featuring Jamie Farr, the best by far is what they're calling it. Let's see.
Yeah, he runs a golf tournament too, I believe. Jamie Farr does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see her on. Yeah, there she is. Empty Nest. You got it. You got it. She was older in that one because she was already doing Murder She Wrote episodes. So she was an adult there. I remember her from Family, which was this huge, huge. I mean, she was nominated for Emmys and everything in that. That was her big. She had done bit parts before that as a child actor. Did an ABC after school special. Started out on Love American Style, Bionic Woman episode. But Family was her big breakout.
Aside from the ones I've already mentioned, I don't recognize most of these other. I think there was one that I kind of think I've seen before in terms of the name. Let me see. Let me go back up.
Well, there's Robin Lord Taylor and Nicholas Hammond.
Who I have no.
Okay, so Robin Lord Taylor is the Penguin on Gotham.
And I don't watch a lot of the modern stuff, RJ.
And Nicholas Hammond was the first live action Spider-Man. So all the TV movies for Spider-Man had Nicholas Hammond in them. Really was kind of a little disappointed that they didn't find a place to throw him into that No Way Home Spider-Man movie. That would have been just the ultimate Easter egg, I think.
Yeah, I think the only other name here that I think I somewhat recognize, I think I might have seen some of his work before, was Mark Dodson. I might have seen his work before, but I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just getting that credit for the voice of Salacious Crumb in Return of the Jedi, and the voice of the Gremlins. Yeah. So yeah, he's kind of like Frank Messick. He does animal talking voices.
Frank Messick or Don Messick?
Don Messick. Who's he? You know what? I converted Don Messick and Frank Welker together because they both do the same thing.
Well, and plus they've been on a lot of stuff together, most notably Scooby-Doo. Frank Welker was, of course, Fred Jones, and Don Messick was the first voice of Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
And if you can like and share the stream, RJ, see if we can get some more people in here. That'd be
sure. Now, I do recognize a lot of these comic book people here. Larry Stroman and Pat Broderick are going to be there. Those are names I recognize.
Yeah, you probably would seem to recognize more of the names than I would.
And then they get into the cosplayers, so I don't know the cosplayers, but
yeah. So, anyways, I was hoping we could get a few more people. I know Rex, I guess, since he doesn't have to go to work, he's extending his show through into the evening here, and Rick's not here yet. So, but one of the things, of course, I was wanting to get at, considering that we're in the first week of September here, was something that you and I probably grew up with, and a lot of people in our age group probably grew up with the idea of, come back to school around this time of year. And one of the things that as kids we'd look forward to is not going back to school, but
the new cartoons were going to be announced.
The new cartoons coming out, most notably the Saturday morning cartoons, and also the the syndicated stuff that would show up like He-Man and G.I. Joe and all that. You have any memories you'd like to share from those days?
Oh, I mean, it was just where I would wait for that TV guide to come out, because it was there were two places to get it. One was the TV guide, and the other was your regular comic books, because the comic books would have a center spread saying, "Hey, here's what's coming out on NBC or CBS or ABC.
Oh yeah, I think on some of my history segments here, when I look back at particularly some of the ones in the '80s, I think I've seen like where they've had like the ads on the covers for like coming this fall, coming this fall, coming to Saturdays this fall, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, or something like that. So
yeah, you'd see the little triangle blurb on the corner of the covers. And then inside, it'd be the middle page would just be this double page ad for the entire schedule. It'd tell you what was coming on at 8 o'clock, 9, 10, and it'd have a little drawing of the characters.
And it is kind of funny how, well, I don't know if funny would be the right word for it, but how you would think how comics and cartoons are so intertwined with each other. Many a cartoon, and it's not just the superhero cartoons either, would get their own cartoon adaptation.
It went both ways, didn't it? I mean, you had comic books that would become cartoons, and then you had cartoons that would become comic books.
Like with Popeye, for example, Popeye started out as in the newspapers, part of the King Feature Syndicate with
Thimble Theater.
Yeah, with Thimble Theater and all that, and then of course David McKay publications, which we talked about before, which of course unfortunately I don't have those. I can't find those comics, so I can't read the actual comics themselves. But we do the summary work from GCD a lot when we do come across those. They were doing the comic book adaptation, and of course Fleischer Studios, and later Famous Studios would do the well, they weren't necessarily the cartoon shows at the time. They were more like they were originally. What a lot of people tend to forget is a lot of the cartoons that we see that are from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s were theatrical shorts,
right?
Used as warm-ups for a main movie or something like that. Kind of funny. On Saturday, I was watching. Well, let's see. Was it? No, actually, it may have been Sunday. In fact, because I was. It was Sunday since we weren't doing last night. Since we weren't doing anything, I turned on MeTV Plus for a little while to watch Sunday night cartoons, and one of the cartoons they were featuring was a Popeye cartoon from Famous Studios from the early 40s, Bride and Gloom. I don't know. That one is okay. So Popeye and Olive are sitting in Olive's house, right?
Right.
And they are, they're talking about like the next day they plan on going and getting married. And so Popeye, in kind of a lovesick manner, is as Olive is escorting, okay, Popeye, time to go home. So she's walking him out the door. Instead of getting his sailor cap, he grabs her bonnet and it ends up, walking like he's walking on air. Ends up kissing a policeman on the way home, And then during the night, though, Olive has a nightmare. At first, it seems funny, she, gives birth to a pair of twin boys, and then, who basically are all taking shots at Popeye's head, using his head as a punching bag. And then the other aspect kind of sets in. As you see throughout her dreams, just what it might be like to raise a couple of boys who inherit Popeye's inherent rowdiness.
Yes.
It turns into a nightmare, and she said, Popeye, at the end of the cartoon, she goes, Popeye, I'm never going to marry the fear of having to raise a couple little Popeye demons or whatever,
she had her hands full with Sweet Pea anyway. I don't know where he came from, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm not completely sure. I don't think Sweet Pea was actually there. I think Sweet Pea was like, well, okay, was Sweet Pea a boy or a girl?
I think he was a boy.
If he was a boy, then I think he was like I don't know if he might have been Olive's nephew or Pop. I think he's probably Olive's nephew because
Neither one. He was
Popeye's
abandoned
family
on the doorstep.
What was that?
He was abandoned on the doorstep of the oil home where Popeye was living as a boarder, because Popeye was a walk-on character for the Thimble Theater, which was all about Olive and Castor, her brother, Castor Oil, haha,
Olive oil,
and their parents,
Oh
and
yeah, Nana oil and all that.
yeah, and he was just a sailor in town who rented a room from them later on in the series, and while he was there, Sweepy was left on the door, so they raised him as their own child, even though they weren't married. It was a Depression era kind of thing. Yeah, here's a baby. Somebody's got to take care of it.
Yeah. But yeah, kind of funny because it probably started out as being more of a feature about Olive and about the oils, but then Popeye ended up becoming the breakout character.
That's happened with other series before, where they introduce somebody and that person takes over the show. Family Matters. It was several episodes before they introduced Steve Urkel, and what happened? It became the Urkel show, pretty much.
And I don't know if some of the other, I did hear some scuttlebutt there too over the years where some of the actors or actresses on the show started to feel like, man, why is this show about Urkel? Why is Jaleel getting all the Did I do that?
Yeah, he just they fed him catchphrases and people started repeating them.
The catchphrases, the fact that he was just a stereotypical nerd, and then the little car that maybe some people might call a clown car.
It's a real car. The Isetta is a real vehicle. It's just a little European compact, micro compact. An Isetta, that's what I said.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fun because, it's interesting though because some Jamie Foxx would just suddenly vanish from the show like for no apparent reason.
I don't remember Jamie Foxx on that show.
No, Jamie Foxworth. She was okay. So you had Laura, Eddie, and then Jamie Foxx that played the other daughter. Early part of the seasons.
Yeah, they had two daughters all the way through it, but it was you started to see him less and less. You started to see the nephew more often. Richie would get a lot of parts.
But it's kind of like she just kind of disappeared though. It got to the point in some of the later seasons where she wasn't even acknowledged a lot of times.
Yeah, it was all Laura and Eddie.
Yeah. Well, Laura being being Steve's initial love interest for a long time, and then
who he finally gets.
Huh?
Who he finally gets. They become
even though he had Myra there who was like really wanting him.
Well, yeah, she was a female Urkel.
Yeah. I had kind of hoped we could have had at least one other person here to where we could talk about this stuff. Just
that would have been nice.
Yeah, but I'm still happy you came. At least I got one other person to talk to about this stuff because I felt like this. This would be a good show to have. Where maybe not necessarily focusing in as much on the current crop of news stories and just looking back to some older stuff, particularly the cartoons and stuff. Like, I still at times can remember some of the preview specials they'd have on the Friday nights prior to the weekend.
Yeah, I never really watched those. I grew up. My house didn't have television in it most of the time. But on Friday nights, I would spend the night at my grandmother's house, which meant that I would wake up Saturday and watch the cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's see, you were born in 1967, so you're 55. So that means you were growing up on a lot of the stuff. Like when you were watching Saturday morning cartoons, a lot of the stuff you were watching was from the late 60s. So you were watching like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? You were watching some of the Archie stuff. And
Yep.
going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, we were talking a lot about the Popeye stuff. Archie comics comes to mind too, in terms of starting out as comic book, but then you had a number of over the years. You've had a number of anime adaptations of that too. You had the Archies, the new Archies, Archie's TV Funhouse, kind of to a bit of an extension. Sabrina and the Groovy Ghoulies.
Yep.
From Filmation was also kind of from. In fact, if I remember correctly, I don't know if it was from the Archies or New Archies or something like that, but I recall, I think the Archies actually had a mainstream radio hit.
The Archies had a mainstream radio hit with Sugar Sugar.
Sugar, and incense and peppermint for Shirley to find.
That one I don't remember, but I know the Groovy Ghoulies had a hit, a mainstream hit with Chickaboom Chickaboom.
Okay, I didn't know that, but of course from Groovy Ghoulies, what I remember is everybody shout, come on, let's hang out. It's time for the Groovies. And then you see, of course, Drac playing that piano, even out of his feet, you see the feet dancing around and all that.
Yep. Now, I talked with Lou Scheimer on the phone. I had a phone interview with him at one point.
Yeah, I remember, and I've seen some of that interview. I know you talked about that before.
Yeah, and he talked about how no one told him when they marketed the Groovy Ghoulies that it had a different meaning in England. And it was a big joke because your ghoulies were your testicles. It's slang over there for that.
Oh, so I bet in England when you tell somebody, you mention something, the Groovy Ghoulies, they're probably gonna look at you like, huh?
Yeah. Now I don't know if it's still that way or if it was like a slang of the time, because a lot of slang changes over years, but it was interesting, he said.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, and it would have been nice to see Woody here because I was just thinking a lot about the Woody Woodpecker shorts too.
Yeah. And the Archie, the Archie's Funhouse. That was he just got. Speak of the devil and his imp shall appear.
I just tuned it. Hey Woody, I did send you a link to the StreamYard via email. If you want to pop in and join us, you're more than welcome to. I said I pretty much sent out the link to a lot of people today.
Yeah, the Archie's Funhouse, I think it was, introduced a lot of older comic strip characters that had gotten short cartoons. They did the short Dick Tracy's, they did Smokey Stover, the Captain and the Kids, which was the Katzenjammer Kids. So these are all like
let's see. Hi guys, sorry I can't do this stuff very well. I have low band. Okay, yeah, I kind of figured as such, but I wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to, Woody, if you wanted to join us. So, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of. Were you about to say something, RJ?
No. I said my bit. I was talking about the Smokey Stover and the Katzenjammer Kids and all the stuff that.
Oh yeah, that's right. And I was about to go. Yeah, I remember. I remember that. Backo and I have talked about that before, where I guess Captain and the Kid just showed up in some of the stuff from the United Features Syndicate, and like I think Tip Top Comics. That was he thought that might have been a rip off of the Katzenjammer Kids, which were
it was the same people. Yeah, it was not really a rip off so much as it was just a rebranding.
Okay, but they had both set of reprints running in the comics back in the late 30s there.
Yeah, they just renamed the strip to that. And the cartoon was always the two kids getting on the captain's nerves and him trying to catch them and basically give them a beating. and then Mama would step in and beat the captain over the head with a rolling pin, and end of the cartoon. It was the same thing all the time.
Yeah, well, that seemed to be a bit of a motif among many of the like golden. When you look back at the golden age of cop and cartoons, that seemed to be a bit of the. That seemed to be a bit of the.
What we call a trope.
Quite
nowadays.
a bit of a motif there, where you would where you'd get the somebody like beating somebody over the head with a rolling pin. Yeah, actually, that reminds me of that does kind of remind me a little bit of quite a symphonic Tom and Jerry cartoon as what World War II probably made it tougher to market the Katzenjammer kids.
Yeah, you got a German immigrant family and a German captain. Although I don't know that there was as much marketing difficulty with Germans as there was with the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. I mean, the Germans, we sort of went over there and said, yeah, we better go help. The Japanese, they bombed Pearl Harbor. Like, hey, they hit us. We really didn't like them.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the banned cartoons that you can still find on YouTube. Like I was just reading a little, when I was just doing some historical research over the weekend here or whatever. Probably one of the cartoons that actually has gotten banned, but you can still find it on YouTube, is a Popeye cartoon called "You're a Sap, Mr. Jap," which has Popeye encounter. It was a wartime propaganda short.
Sure.
And
I remember
of course,
Merry
Japanese
Melodies
had all what they believed the stereotypical things of Japanese at the time were being short, having the huge overbite and all that.
Yeah, Merry Melodies had it too, where they had they did a little cartoon with all the insects were doing a victory garden, and growing food for the war. Victory gardens, because you couldn't go buy groceries so much. There was rationing going on, but you grew your victory gardens and then you fed your family. And halfway through the little short there, they started to get attacked there because they looked up and they shouted beetles, and you looked up and it was Japanese beetles in these little planes with the little Japanese sun print on, and they were doing kamikaze dives into the garden so they're having to fight them off with anti-aircraft seed pods and stuff. I thought it was clever, and it took me somebody to explain to me, yeah, that was because it was during the war, you dumb little kid. Of course, when I was a little kid,
I mean, and here's the thing. You'd have a lot of people getting upset at that now when that happened, 75, 80 years ago. Obviously, I think as we all look back in time, we understand that, okay, that was how we felt then, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we, one, feel the same way now, or two, that we would even condone that kind of, making fun of stereotypical behavior.
Yeah, you're a sap, Mr. Jap has I can see them not putting it into rotation on television and stuff like that, but it should definitely be available on DVDs as part of the Popeye collectives, and certainly an important place in history to understand how we were dealing with the war through art.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like what I did. That's one of the things that I kind of do with the historical comic retrospective when we do some of the commentary on it. It's to look back and see, how our sensibilities have changed over time, from then to now. I mean, and I always give the disclaimer that, we don't necessarily condone the behavior today that was condoned back then. Woody's popped in with a couple more things here. Let's see. Oh, sure. Lots of those Bugs Bunny nips and nips. Mm-hmm.
Yep, nip the nips because Japan was Nippon, so sometimes they were called nips instead of Japs.
Yeah, Nippon. Donald Duck. in the Fuhrer space. Yeah. Well, also, and then going to the comics because, of course, I've read. I've gone back and read some of the old, Fawcett comics. Wiz comics. Wow comics. The comics that would feature Captain Marvel, right? And you had a couple of characters there, like that would probably be considered controversial today: Captain Nazi and Captain Nippon.
Yeah.
Now
Now, Captain Nazi still made appearances in the
those were
70s.
time-specific characters, mind you. Even though I think they still did somewhat adapt Captain Nazi in later years, but I
because
don't
I've
think.
never seen him in the 70s in Captain Marvel stories.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we're talking about the Fawcett Comics original Captain Marvel,
the real one.
Yeah,
the real Captain Marvel, Shazam.
So, yeah, I mean, well, even a lot of the Warner, even a lot, it's kind of funny because you said it works both ways. We talked about how some comics and Disney got their fair share of comics that they got adapted into as well, and of course probably throughout the 50s and 60s in particular, you had companies like Dell Comics, Gold Key, Charlton all coming along and doing a lot of those adaptations. I think Charlton did a lot of the Hanna-Barbera comic adaptations from the Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah.
I know that I think Flintstones and Jetsons were done by Dell, I think, or Gold Key, one of the two.
Dell and Gold Key sort of. What was it? Gold Key was a reprinter. So you would see a Dell comic, and then you would see the same comic book with a Gold Key label. You would see a lot of Whitman was that way as well. You would see DC Comics with a Whitman bullet instead of a DC bullet, because Whitman just bought the comic for purposes of reprinting it.
Yeah. Well, Gold Key, yeah, I get that. It seemed like Gold Key seemed to take over a lot of the stuff. So you think that might be why I can't find any Gold Key comics, because they are just simply reprints of, because that site I use for the public domain comic
not all of them were. Gold Key, Gold Key's biggest running title, and it really didn't show on the cover as the title, but it was the title of the book, was called Four Color. And they got up over like more than 1,000 issues, maybe even 2,000 issues of that. But the cover would just be like some random Disney cartoon. Could have been a movie, could have just been, a Mickey Mouse comic. They would do some classics illustrated stuff. They would,
one issue. If I understand correctly, wasn't Four Color was kind of like the type of comic we were talking about the other day, with single series and large feature and feature book, right? Where one of those where they would highlight a specific character for the whole book as opposed to the anthology, like the other.
Yeah, but it's like the cover of the book would just be that title. It would be like Uncle Scrooge and the Mystery of the Lost Inca Treasure. There'd be nothing on there that said, oh, by the way, Four Color number, whatever. If you got down into the indicia, the fine print inside, then you would see that. But
right.
It was
well, and I know that, like single series that we looked at the other day. Let's see. I think David McKay had a version of a book called Feature Book that did that too, and as well as Dell even came out with a large feature book. Yeah, so I'm going to step away from the computer for a moment. If you want to plug anything, RJ, while I'm gone.
Okay. Yeah, well, we just came off a stream over on the Critical Blast channel where we had Nandor Fox Schaefer talking about Man-Child #2, which is a very interesting book. It's about basically a comic book fanboy coming to terms with the death of Stan Lee, and his obsession with this comic book universe. And at the same time, this it dives into that comic book universe, and we get the adventures of the Monarch Crier, both in comic and in this issue in film form. And it's leading into a sort of interdimensional crossover thing. I'm thinking it's going to be more like a Last Action Hero kind of thing at some point. I'm not sure. Nandor's very close to the vest on where this story goes, and of course, as with all of Nandor's books, they're you read them once and then you got to read them a second time because there was a second story being told that you probably didn't pay attention to. So it's a very Watchmen-esque kind of storytelling approach that he does in all his books. Recommended, definitely. So go check out the stream. Woody, you were there. You saw Nandor. You know what we were talking about. But other than that, what else? I could tell people to head over to Denali's.com and get your copies of The Immortal Mask. This book is printed. It is done. All 3 issues are out there. You say I want it. He takes your money and tells me ship them a copy, and I ship you a copy. So we're going to town on that. Did buy some books today, but nothing super stunning. I picked up the 5th issue of Flashpoint Beyond, which I think is the crisis story that DC's really underplaying. Good news is that the very first 3 pages of it happen after this Dark Crisis thing, and they're talking all about it and how it ended. And I'm like, oh, cool. I don't have to read that book now. Everything was fine. The Justice League came back. And Dark Crisis and Infinite Earths completely spoiled by page 1, 2, and 3 of Flashpoint Beyond number 5, out on stands today, this week. Yeah, and Nandor is a really good writer, and I did immediately after the show go out and back books 1 and 2 because I wanted that cover of number 1 that he had there, Tony Harris cover, who did all those Starman covers back in the day. Oh, what would Mike do if he came back and I wasn't here? Because I can't even play the music. There's nothing I can do here. No control. I don't know. I could start playing music on my end and see if we can get the stream struck. That would be fun. No, let's not do that. Hey, I'm abandoned here. I don't know what to do. And now somebody's shooting. Why would there be fireworks on It could be Labor Day. It's the lake. It's tourist season, and they like to shoot off fireworks as soon as it gets dark. For every holiday they have here, because it's legal in Arkansas to use fireworks.
All right, I'm back. Thanks for holding down the fort there, RJ.
I was running out of breath, man.
Well, I had to go do a couple of things, so real quick, just take care of some lighting issues. I may have to stand up to turn on the light here, but just not the sun isn't down enough here. I'm in Southern California, so we've been dealing with some pretty intense heat the last few days here.
Yeah, I can imagine. Same all over, really, isn't it?
And of course, one of the other bad things that happened the last couple of days here is that one of the outlets went out, and it happened to be the outlet that was also connected to mine and my sister's air conditioners in our rooms. So I've been sitting here sweltering. Yeah. I know though that in your part of the country you've been dealing with thunderstorms and floods there.
Yeah, I haven't had much flooding because I'm on the high end of the mountain, so it all runs downhill for me. I've run into some high water on roads during the rain itself, but yeah, Woody, table topics was one of my favorite parts of Toastmasters, but usually at least you get a question to start off with. It's just not like, okay, stores, the floor is yours, do something.
Well, RJ, I did try to have this to where, we'd have something to talk, even if it wasn't like anything like mainstream. It's like I had the idea of talking more about like Saturday morning cartoons and stuff with this being.
Oh yeah, he's just talking about me being left on my own. with no one to talk to.
Well, I thought you could handle it. You host your own show as well. That's why I say, hey, you got anything you want to promote? Go for it.
That's why I.
I mean, look, I end up a lot of times having to do that at the beginning of my show too, where I sit there, have to like try to, put stuff together, or say stuff, when nobody's here yet. I have to wait for a few minutes before anybody even gets here to check it. That's why I usually don't start until like, about 10 minutes in before I actually start reading the articles. Yeah. Usually because. Now, if I had like 4 or 5 people in here at the beginning, then yeah, I'd be starting right away. But
Oh yeah, Woody, Beaver Lake's not as low as it has been. It was really, really low a few months ago. The creeks are still pretty low, feeding into it. The ones I drive over used to be a lot fuller. I'm still seeing a lot of rocks sticking up. It's not nearly as deep as it used to be, and I don't know how much more rain we need to get to fill them up because. We could stand to have some more.
Yeah.
You got to come over here. We'll go down to Beaver Lake and everything around here, Mike, is beaver. We have beaver. We sell beaver tails, which are kind of a donut with a honey glaze. We have the Rowdy Beaver, which is a biker bar, and of course, it's the town of Beaver. The lake is actually Table Rock Lake, where I'm at. The Table Rock Lake through Beaver. Now, I think there is actually a beaver dam, big thing. I've driven across the top of it.
And do you leave it to Beaver?
I leave Beaver every morning, and I come back every evening.
Now, do you leave it to Beaver?
No, I knew what you meant. I was just trying to play off of it. You can see Beaver on YouTube if you look up Beaver Suspension Bridge Tour Bus. Because it's a huge suspension bridge. It's called the Golden Gate Bridge because they did paint it orange, and it's one of the few suspension bridges still in existence. But you're not supposed to put more weight on it than it can bear, and somebody drove a tour bus over it, and you can see it on YouTube, and you can see the bridge do this underneath the bus.
Oh. That looks like something you'd find in one of the classic cartoons that we're talking about.
Yeah, it waved a lot like that. And people were like, because people could tell when the bus was like parked there. It's a bridge where only one car can go on at a time from either direction. If you see a car at the other end, you go, then they go. It's a 1-lane suspension bridge, and it's wood. So when people saw the tour bus there, they were like, oh, this is going to be something. And they got their phones out and just started watching. They had to shut the bridge down afterward because it had to be inspected. They were like, something snapped somewhere, we're sure.
Well, I guess if you put that much weight on it, yeah, I mean, it's like.
Yeah, and I've seen it firsthand.
Kind of like sitting there watching an old Looney Tunes cartoon or something like that, right?
Yeah, I've watched it do that firsthand with big trucks going ahead of me. Not nearly as big as a bus. I have seen a bus go over it though. So
yeah, actually, as part of the Me TV stuff, because Me TV, like I think it was a couple of years ago here, did actually get the broadcast right to some of the like older like Warner Brothers cartoons as well as MGM, DePatie Frailing, Fleischer, and Famous Studios. So and they've been showing a lot of that stuff. So I've actually, as part of the Warner Brothers packages, I've been seeing some of the old Warner Brothers cartoons, some of the old black and white Warner Leon Schlesinger cartoons that were featuring like Porky Pig.
Oh yeah, I don't take nearly as much advantage of the Warner Archive store as I should, because they've got all the great Warner Brothers stuff that only went for like a series or a season. You can get it on DVD. They just don't sell it mass market. They're like, we'll print it on demand if you want one of these.
Well, again, a lot of these cartoons were originally developed as shorts, and the only way you can see them is usually through these compilation shows, like what the Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck show in the 70s was. Like it's funny because we know a lot of these shows today, like the Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck show, Tom and Jerry show. These are more compilation shows. What they do is they will show you. They like usually about 3. Well, in the old days it was like since there was a half hour, you'd usually get 3, maybe at best 4 episodes because on average a lot of those shorts would be about 7 minutes. So you'd get at least 3 of them to allowing for cartoons or whatever. You might get maybe 7 of them for now they do them. Now they do the hour shows like on Saturday morning. Like so every weekday morning, MeTV has a show called Tune In With Me, where you have a cartoon curator named Bill, and then you have a puppet fish named Toonie, and they'll usually be some kind of theme they'll put out there. They'll show kind of a compilation of cartoons, mixing between Warner Brothers, MGM, DePatie Frayling, Fleischer. In fact, what was it about? I don't know if it was a few weeks or a month ago. I saw for the first time on there. They even had some of the old Fleischer Superman. They showed one of the Fleischer Superman cartoons on there.
Those were the best. They were rotoscoping those to make those. That was a pioneer in that technology to do that.
I'm turning on the light in here now. I just didn't think when I stood up, rather than like just trying not to give you a shot you don't want to see.
Let there be light.
Yep. So, anyways, yeah. So, yeah, and of course, growing up, I was a big cartoon watcher growing up. I've told you that before. I'd have pretty much the schedules for the morning, the syndicated blocks in the morning and the afternoon, and Saturday morning network cartoons. And and of course, I was a child of the '80s, so you had a lot of you had your fair share of syndicated cartoons. Like, of course, Filmation had He-Man and She-Ra. And then they'd have Black Star and Brave Star for the Saturday morning cartoon lineups, as well. And then another Filmation one they had for syndicated was Ghostbusters. Rankin Bass did a couple of series, well-known series, Thundercats and Silverhawks.
That's right.
I
don't hear much about Silverhawks. Thundercats everybody loved. Silverhawks was sort of a Thundercats, but they flew.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny too, because Earl Hammond, the late great Earl Hammond, he did the voices for the 2 main antagonists on both shows. He did Mum Ra's voice on Thundercats, and he did Monstar on
it was She-Ra, wasn't it?
No, Monstar was from Silverhawks.
Okay.
Hordak was She-Ra with
yes.
George Costanzo. So, and of course, I don't know if you ever watched the Thundercats or Silverhawks, but the main baddie always had, and doing their whole transformation scene, they'd always have that big monologue. They did, like Mum Ra's case, ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mum Ra, the ever living.
Yes.
And then you go from being this like decrepit little mummy guy to this big, huge guy who could fly around almost like he was a bat or something like that. And then
why would you ever change back?
Huh?
Why would he ever change back?
Well, maybe because that's the way he preserved it. Like in a lot of series like that, if somebody has to make a change like that, yeah, they may change you to a more powerful form, but maybe there is some kind of restriction usually placed on it, like they can't maintain it because it's too much of a drain on their energy, on their life force, or something to
Yeah,
that.
I guess.
Because if you notice in Mumrod's case, he actually had to sit there and go back into his casket to rest once in a while. If you remember that. And in Monstar's case, his transformation was fueled by the moon, as they called it, the moon star limbo, that little star thing in his eye, where moon star of limbo, give me the might, the muscle, the menace of Monstar. Yeah, that was Earl Hammond who did both of those. You know,
there was a lot of animation saved doing these cartoons because about 5 minutes of the 20 was always reused stuff for transformations, and running scenes. They would always run through the same place.
Woody said, okay. I was a kid in the 60s, RJ was a kid in the 70s, and Mike was a kid in the 80s. 65, 55, 45. Well, I'm 46 going on 40. I'll be 47 come October 7th. So my birthday is kind of around the corner here. But yeah, so, but in fact, one of the history pieces we're going to have tonight is going to talk about somebody who was probably not as well. He was still kind of prolific in the 80s as a voice actor, celebrating a birthday today. We'll get to that. But he wasn't like super well known, but he was still fairly active during the 80s. So I won't spoil it any more than that. But yeah, I mean, I'd watch. Yeah, I mean, I just loved watching cartoons growing up. And even though some of the ones that were originally came out of the 60s, like a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff that came out of the 60s, like Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, Space Ghost and Dino Boy, Mighty Mightor, and Moby Dick. The 1967 Fantastic Four series. I watched those as Herculoid. Those are in rerun syndication the time I was watching them. I know originally they were Saturday morning cartoons, and that was kind of funny, particularly throughout the 60s too, when you'd have basically, you'd have Hanna-Barbera. I know Hanna-Barbera, Filmation, those two became kind of the big two among Saturday mornings, where you would have sometimes where you'd have the company competing against itself in some respects. Because maybe on ABC you might have one Hanna-Barbera cartoon going, and you might have another one going on like NBC or CBS or something like that.
Oh yeah, exactly. They'd be, but they did that on purpose to lock out the competition, because then it was like, we don't care where you watch, you're watching us.
Yeah. Is that what Lou Shamer actually told you when he did the interview?
No, he didn't tell you anything about that, but that was just that's just a known marketing method that was used.
Now, Lou Shamer, aside from, of course, being the head guy at Filmation, was a pretty accomplished voice actor himself. He would usually do a lot of the side characters in a lot of the shows he did,
as did his daughter.
Yeah, his daughter Erica. She did. She didn't do as many, but I know on the He-Man series, he was King Randor, Orko, and just think about too the vocal diversity of the characters too. King Randor, Orko, Attack Track, Triclops, Trapjaw, Stratos. These are some of the characters that Lou Scheimer did just on He-Man alone.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them were characters that, they were only going to be there for that episode. They weren't recurring, so they didn't have to hire an actor for each voice.
Orko was a pretty.
Orko was, yeah. And Orko was electronically modified, which was still new technology at that point.
So, and then I'm thinking Attack Track was probably um, electric as well, right?
Yeah, I'm
Or
sure it would have
motor.
been.
Yeah, I mean, I was, as I said, I've also, we were talking a little bit earlier about the idea of how certain comic books got adapted into cartoons and stuff, and vice versa. I was thinking about, of course, we know about Popeye cartoons in the Fleischer Studios and later Famous Studios, but then in the late '80s they had Popeye and Son, and then in '86, Deke Entertainment actually did a cartoon that featured some King Feature Syndicate characters, but not Popeye. Defenders of the Earth. I don't know if you saw that or remember that at all.
Yeah, Mandrake the Magician, the Phantom, and Flash Gordon,
And
and their
Lothar.
teenage sidekicks.
Right. Right. So that, yeah. The hero who stalks, the beast call him brother, the ghost who walks. Phantom, defenders of the earth, enders, master of magic spells and illusions.
They also
Enemies
did
tremble.
a Prince Valiant one around that time.
Yeah. Well, I know Galtar, the Golden Lance, was also around that time too. Well, Deke Entertainment was also pretty big there in the late '80s and early '90s, coming out with a bunch of like more syndicated stuff. Like Mask and the Mask. I'm talking about, of course, Mobile Armored Strike Command.
Oh yes,
and probably a name that a lot of fans might know is Doug Stone. Doug Stone, who of course voiced most notably Matt Track on that series, along with Bruce Sato and a few others, would later go on to do a lot of anime work throughout the the aughts, the 2000s, and into 2000. Even to this day, he's still doing anime dub voice. Another name that was kind of another name, Brennan Thick, who voiced Scott Tracker in the Mask cartoon. Brennan Thick was I think he was the older son of Alan Thick. So we all know about Robin Thicke. I know a lot of people know who Robin Thicke is, but he had, I think, an older brother named Brennan who, for a short while, tried his hand in getting in the business as well. He voiced Scott Tracker on Mask, and then he also voiced in the '80s version of Dennis the Menace. Now, Dennis the Menace, I think, was also originally, wasn't he a comic strip character, not necessarily comic book?
Yeah, he was a newspaper strip character.
Yeah. So
Hal Ketchum.
What was that?
Hal Ketchum.
Yeah. So
that was the creator.
Oh, Mr. Wilson. In fact, they
And
made
then
a live TV show with him in the '60s, I believe, or the '50s or '60s. And then
live in the '50s, and then he was a restaurant mascot for Dairy Queen.
Was that to compete with Bob's Big Boy?
It might have been, but I remember the slogan for that was he was always getting one of their ice cream bars, making a mess with it, and the word they invented was scrumpdilicious.
Ah. And of course, he had his favorite dog, Ruff.
Oh, yes. Ruff and Margaret and Joey.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee was Richie Rich.
Oh, I thought there was a Pee-wee on. Well, I'm thinking of the cartoon, though. There was kind of the scientific friend he had with a red beret, I think, blue shirt.
I'm familiar with that one.
I'm thinking of the D cartoon, though, Dennis the Menace. Maybe he wasn't in the papers, but
PB, not Pee-wee.
Oh,
there we go.
What was that?
PB, P-E-E-B-E-E. PB Kappa.
Oh, PB. PB, like peanut butter, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he was on that cartoon series with the red baseball cap and the glasses.
Look at how much I remember, huh?
Ah, yes.
Don't I just amaze you with that?
Voiced by Jeannie Elias.
And she's still going to this day as well. She's another one of those who does a lot of. I think she does not only does some voice work in anime, but she also may be doing some behind the scenes stuff too. Woody's saying Phi Beta Kappa.
Yeah, it's exactly what he was being named after, P.B. Kappa, to be, smart person.
Yeah. Somebody's kind of got like probably a high score with Mensa, or he's a member of Mensa or something like that, right?
Probably the youngest member in Mensa, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Another Deke Entertainment cartoon I remember is Fantastic Max. That one was interesting. I don't know if you ever saw that. That one may have been after. You may have already been an adult when that one, because I think that one came out in the early '90s. Fantastic Max is about a little baby named Max, and to everybody else, he was a baby, but he had this little doll, this little green doll with this long nose, had a hole at the end of it, an alien-looking doll, right? And
Okay.
he pulled the string on this doll. The doll would come to life, and the doll could sit there and make other things. Like he had like a building blocks robot that would come to life as well. He would actually turn like his cradle, or I don't know if it's cradle or his high chair or something, into an actual rocket, and he'd take adventures into space with AB the robot and ZX the alien creature. And it's like the alien creature would sit there. He had the two antennas with the big balls on his head like that. And you go, let's rock and roll. And they twist around, and see this little light show, and then twist back, and all of a sudden they'd all be transformed into something other than what they were. So it's kind of
there was another old cartoon show, where a kid had a toy that would come to life, and he had a toy Pegasus, and he would put it on the ground, and he would say something, and it would, and it would be a full life-size Pegasus talking to him and everything. He'd climb on his back, and they'd fly off to an adventure somewhere.
Yeah.
And then they'd come back, and it would turn back into the toy.
Yeah, don't remember that. Don't remember hearing about that one at any point.
I'm gonna have to look that, because it was done in shorts. It was never like a full show.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I know even Columbia Pictures got into the act a little bit with all that.
Luno the White Stallion from Terry Toons.
Okay, Terry Toons, which also, of course, had Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll.
Yeah. It says Luno the White Stallion was a Terry Toons television series in the mid-'60s, centered on a little boy named Tim who had a toy horse Pegasus of marble white named Luno, who would come alive and whisk him off on adventures in far-off lands when Tim said the words, "A winged horse of marble white, take me on a magic flight."
Yeah, and that was one of the cool things a lot about, particularly some of the shows that were coming out in the '60s and '70s too. A lot of the companies were incorporating this, incorporating the music with the cartoons. Hence the term cartoons, cartoons. In fact, even though today when we say the word, we say and spell the word cartoon, we look at it as CARTOONS. But I don't know if you knew this or not, but I think originally it had a slightly different spelling. It wasn't TOONS, it was TUNES.
Yeah, well, they were all tunes and melodies. Remember, they were merry melodies and Looney Tunes, because they were, a lot of the original shorts were a song that was made up, and then they were, dancing around and doing crazy things to the song.
Right.
And then, of course, there was the magazine Car Toons, TOONS, which was all motor vehicle related.
Well, I
but they
would
were.
think too, if you think about it, maybe the car part of it could also be considered like caricature tunes.
Yeah, not sure what the etymology is on the word cartoons. I mean, initially, it wouldn't have anything to do with drawing, because you would say that somebody was a cartoon in the old days, and it just meant that they were a ridiculous person. It didn't have anything to do with them being drawn. Um, it was more related to caricature and silliness.
Yeah. Like, and I know as we talked about, we talked a lot about how well, we talked about the back and forth between some comics being turned into cartoons, some cartoons being turned into and I don't know which way it went in this. I remember there was another series that DC did back, I think, in the 50s. There were a couple of them, Real Screen Gems and The Fox and the Crow. And I think The Fox and Crow was actually a set of animated shorts for a while there. I just don't know um, which company they were doing. I don't know which company did those shorts, but I think I had heard something about Fox. Of course, as we talked about earlier too, Woody Woodpecker and his characters also have comic adaptations. I've seen on when I've done my history segments how some of the comics would say Walter Lance is Woody Woodpecker, or Walter Lance is Andy Panda, or Walter Lance is Chili Willy.
Yeah.
Walt Disney did much the same thing. Walt Disney's Donald Duck, Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse, that kind of thing. And it's kind of funny because back in the gold and silver age, of course, different companies were doing those things. It was usually Dell that was doing it in the older days. But now, in more modern times, I know the main like DC and Marvel have both, kind of trended to that. And it's kind of funny too, because after I've also seen back in the 80s, there, particularly in the late 80s, after the original Transformers, the G1 Transformers cartoon had started up.
Yeah. I think Fox and
Marvel
Crow.
Marvel actually made a comic adaptation of the Transformers, and I think GI Joe has been transitioned to comics quite a bit, on a few different occasions as well. So
Yeah, I was looking at Fox and Crow. They were originally the cartoons, but almost immediately went into comics. But they were licensed. DC's. They were Columbia. They were licensed from Columbia,
okay.
and ran in Real Screen Comics.
Robert's here. Hail Lord Xenu and hail Princess Xena, our only true comic book saviors.
Hail, hail! Um, and apparently, interestingly enough, Fox and Crow were supposed to have an appearance in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like every other cartoon character did, but were dropped at the last minute for unknown reasons. So probably couldn't get a Columbia license.
And then let's see, hail RJ Woody and well, thank you there, Robert. I'm glad you're here. Wow, we're getting some more people in here. Yay! Yeah, we're just looking back at cartoon history a little bit here. That's being Labor Day, and if you guys want to, of course, chime in with anything, your thoughts on anything. Woody's saying, "Hail, Robert Roberts."
We're just hanging out.
Yeah, we're just hanging out, talking classic cartoons, reminiscing about times when we grew up and we were looking forward to Saturday mornings and, looking to get into the Cookie Crisp or the Count Chocula or the Trick Rabbit. Looking forward to some of our favorite cartoons growing up, whether they be the Saturday morning cartoons or the syndicate. What do you have there, RJ? Oh, the Boo Berry. The Boo Berry.
I got my Booberry.
Yeah, that was part of those monster cereal ones too.
Yeah, they brought them back for Halloween. So, but my Walmart didn't have the Fruit Brute, so I've got to look around for that one.
Yeah, let's see. Quake and Crisp. Yeah. Yeah, so,
I remember Quisp, the little alien with the propeller on his head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now, Grant. Now I know that in this case, I don't know if there was ever a comic book adaptation made of it, but you had the Alvin show and that came out in 61, 62, and then you had out later Alvin and the Chipmunks coming out years later. From Ross Bagdasian production.
Oh yeah, his name was hard to say. Chipmunks' first song wasn't even credited to the Chipmunks.
It wasn't?
It was not. It was credited to
David Sullivan or David Seville?
Nope, not David Seville. Maybe it was credited to them. Never mind. It wasn't Alvin. It was David Seville, and it was Witch Doctor.
Yeah, Witch Doctor was another one that was, I think, in the early 60s there was actually a big hit. I heard the Witch Doctor. I told the Witch Doctor I was in love with you. I told the Witch Doctor I was in love with you. And then, ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, bom, bom,
And that's where the
bom,
Chipmunks came in.
Huh?
And that's where the Chipmunks came in. They sang the chorus. Yeah. But it wasn't David Seville and the Chipmunks. It was just David Seville. And that sound caught on. He's like, well, I do it like this. And can you do it some more? And suddenly we had Chipmunks.
Yeah. And then, of course, in the 80s cartoon, they started out with Alvin and the Chipmunks, and then they would later introduce the Chipettes, the female chipmunks, who would serve as close friends to Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. They'd be their female counterparts, in many ways.
And of course, the real reason that they brought them in was so that they could start doing covers of female bands, which we were getting a lot more of in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much of a rich history. When you look back on all that, it's good to take a walk back once in a while to look at that stuff. Let me see. Oh, we're already at an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I skipped dinner.
Huh?
I skipped dinner tonight too. I got a late lunch, so I figured I'd just eat after the broadcasts. I went and did the whole plasma donation drive thing today, and stopped at.
Oh, you're still doing that?
Oh, I'm still doing that. Yeah, I do that twice a week.
Okay. Wow.
Stopped in at Twin Peaks for a late lunch. Had myself some Billionaire's bacon and some fish and chips.
That sounds delicious.
It is delicious. That's a starter. It's like it's just bacon, and then they just coat it in brown sugar and jalapeno spices, and then bake it, and it comes out crisp. And it's hot too. It's spicy hot.
Well, let's see. Well, I do know when I've gone to like 7-Eleven before, Jack Link's has some bacon jerky. It's like
I've had that.
You had that?
I've had their bacon jerky. Not the same thing as this, but you can't go wrong with bacon no matter what you do to it, unless you don't cook it at all, in which case, don't eat it.
Well, actually, isn't? Wait a minute. You're saying you can't go wrong with bacon? Wasn't there something that you brought up a couple months ago where somebody actually did do something wrong with bacon?
Well, yeah, you wrapped ham around it. That makes it look weird. I would never cook it that way anymore. Not unless I wanted to just see reactions of people.
Yeah, that would be funny. You'd have a lot of regurgitation going on there.
I took care of those pesky neighbors.
Yeah. The creepy and the spooky, mysterious, Sanuki. They're all.
Hey, that's going to be a Netflix show again.
Huh?
That's going to be a new show on Netflix again. They're bringing back the
Yeah, I've
Addams
seen
Family.
some of the headlines. But they're focusing in this time on Wednesday.
Yep, totally
The
Wednesday.
daughter. Yeah, because I know a lot of SJWs would be having a fit over John Aston and Carolyn. I can't even remember her last name.
Not Monroe. Jones.
Carolyn
Jones.
Their depiction of what a husband and wife should be like romance wise.
Tish, you spoke French.
Yeah. So RJ, what are some of the favorite cartoons you grew up with?
Well, of course, I always waited for the Super Friends stuff because the superhero stuff was what I was most into. I was being a comic book fan, but
there were a number of different companies that were doing variations of that.
Yeah, and I liked some of the live action stuff that they did for Saturday mornings. Not just obviously they had Shazam, the Shazam and Isis shows, but I was watching these science fiction and fantasy shows like Land of the Lost.
Oh, so you were into the Sid and Marty Krofft stuff as well.
The Sid and Marty Krofft stuff. I can't remember who was. I think it was Filmation that did this as well. But Arc 2, Jason and the Argonauts, Space Academy. Not Jason and the Argonauts. Jason of Star Command.
Well, Land of the Lost was Sid and Marty Krofft, along with like Lidsville, the Bugaloos.
Yeah, that stuff I would watch some of that, but that wore on me after a time. I watched. I was at the right age where I was watching. I was watching Land of the Lost for Holly, because she and I were the same age.
So you had a thing for Holly, yeah?
I had Kathy a thing for Holly.
Kathy Coleman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I wonder is she doing conventions anymore, or is she still around?
I think she has done a few conventions. Yeah, she's done her fair share of conventions.
Character. Yeah, there was a joke in the Jay and Silent Bob films, where Will Ferrell was playing a law officer, and his name was Marshall Willenholly.
Kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference.
Yeah, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you did it. It was Marshall Willenholly on a routine expedition.
Met the greatest escape ever known. High on the rapids, they came tumbling down 1,000 feet below. In the land of course, we know of a YouTuber who is heavily influenced by that as well. Lorenzo.
Yes, where is Lorenzo? Get in here, Lorenzo.
Well, I did invite him, but he said that he aside from right now he just doesn't feel much like doing anything beyond his home show because I guess his health issue act up during the. What are you saying, RJ? The Courtlow, and then
I am a Courtlow. Yes.
Robert said I enjoyed Land of the Lost. Can't remember. Though.
They went through like 2 seasons because the father that was the quest in the first season was how to get back, and it was all tied into the pylons. And the thing is, they didn't get thrown into the past with dinosaurs; they got thrown to another planet because there were like more than one moon in the sky, so they knew they were somewhere else. And one of the things that sticks out in my memory was when they tried to see how far they could see, and they stood up on a cliff and they looked through the binoculars. And they were looking at the back of their own heads, because the refraction of the light is like this is just a weird place. We're seeing all the way around the planet and looking at ourselves in the back.
Well, and there was kind of a little bit of controversy in the show too, because I think the actor's name was Spencer Milligan, who played the father, who played Marshall. after the first season, after the success of the first season, I think he was like wanting more money or something like that, or something to that effect, to where they ended up having to replace him. He I don't know if he quit the show or was fired or something like that. And they had to bring in their uncle.
Their uncle came looking for him and arrived just about the time that their dad made it through the pylon and got home without them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
left the kids behind. I made it home. You're on your own, kids.
Yeah.
Well, he made it somewhere. We don't know if it was home or not. He went somewhere else, and he went to another dimension. So they were left there with Chaka.
Yeah, but the thing, but as I said, the thing is that I think part of the reason they did that was because some issue came up where I don't know if he was wanting more money, or he just didn't like the show. He thought he was going to get typecast and stuck on the. But he was basically let go. I don't know if he quit or was just let go.
Yeah, they had to write him out.
And it's kind of funny because the guy who played the main Sleestack, I think Enoch was his name or something like that.
That was his name.
Enoch? Okay. Yep. He was voiced by Walker Edmondson, and Walker Edmondson had quite a bit of a resume himself in voice acting, as well as because he did a lot of work for he did a number of he lent his voice to a number of Sid and Marty Krofft stuff. He was Enoch the Sleestack. He was also let's see. I think he was H.R. Puffin stuff as well. He was the voice of H.R. Puffin stuff. And then he would, of course, go on. He had some voice roles in later shows too, like he was Inferno and the G1 Transformers. He would come back and do Whizzer in Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends. Or not Spider-Man. No, not Spider-Man. Spider-Man the animated series in the 90s.
Right.
So, so actually in doing my research tonight and trying to figure out like some of the history for tonight, I came across another interesting, even though I decided to choose another one, but on this date 5 years ago today, Hansford Rowe passed away at the age of like 93. Now, for us cartoon fans, he was the voice of the Thunderer in Spider-Man, the animated series. Aside from that, I don't think he had a whole lot. The only other thing he was known for was apparently for his role of Arthur Dupree on the NBC miniseries. V.
Okay. Yeah, The Visitors.
Yeah. So that was the only thing. He was he voiced a Thunderer. But I decided not to go with that one because I didn't think a lot of people would have known him anyway. There were a couple of deaths that happened on this date, and then I came upon one where there was actually somebody who was actually born, who actually would be celebrating their 70th birthday today. Somebody from and we'll do that probably in a few minutes here because we're already at the hour and 45-minute mark. So RJ, I know you came in late, but how have you liked the show tonight?
I love sitting around talking about nostalgia stuff, about the old cartoons and the old TV shows. I need to find who did those shows.
Robert's asking us something. Either of you seen any sign of the 80s Godzilla cartoon? In terms of online or anything like that?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there was talk recently that the second season was going to be released on DVD. I haven't seen it anywhere yet, but it hadn't been released anywhere in any form since its original run.
Yeah, actually, I think I may have actually covered that story a month or so ago. I think I know what you're talking about too now. Yeah, because isn't that the one that had Gedzuki in it?
Yeah, it is.
But was that the 80s or was that the 70s?
I don't remember. might have been. Let's see here. Godzilla Animated Volume 2 DVD, $49.92. No, that can't be it because that's released on June 6th of 2006. Okay, so I don't know. Were there two different Godzilla animated cartoons?
Well, I know there was one. I think maybe back in the 80s or 70s, Godzilla and Gadzuki. Let me see if I
Yeah, there was that one, and I know that they released one that was like after the movie, the newer movies, because they did because he had a whole different look to him. That would have been around 2014. And they actually used the Godzilla movie font for the cartoon series as well. 40 different episodes in that series. But yeah, the Godzilla one where they were on
the
the
one
boat all
I'm
the
thinking
time
of
and they were
was
having
in
trouble.
1978, I believe, 78 to 80. Godzilla. One I'm thinking of, where you had Ted Cassidy who did the vocal. The late Ted Cassidy who did the vocals for Godzilla. And when the Don Messick was the one who did the voice of Godzuki.
Yep.
So that's 1978 was that one, the one that we were just talking about, Godzilla and Godzuki. I watched the one, I think it was the 70s, and never heard. Yeah, I don't know if they just ran it for like 1 year and then it just disappeared or something like that. Or Ted Cassidy died very young. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he did.
But he did a number. I mean, it wasn't just the vocal effects for Godzilla. He did. He actually was also a part of the Challenge of the Super Friends voice cast too. He voiced Black Manta, I believe.
Yeah, he was the second actor to play Bigfoot in the $6 Million Man, taking over for Andre the Giant, who played it the first time around, and then Andre the Giant started getting really big in wrestling. He couldn't come back for the role, so they got Ted Cassidy to do it.
Well, Ted was a big Cassidy man. Was actually pretty tall. Wasn't he like 6'9" or something like that?
Oh yeah, well he was Lurch on the Addams Family, so he was big.
And then I think he actually reprised that role for Scooby-Doo, all new Scooby-Doo movies as well.
Yes, which you can't find on DVD.
What, the all new Scooby-Doo movies?
Yes, because when you find those sets on DVD, they call it the almost complete. It has every episode in it except for the Addams Family episodes because John Astin wouldn't sign the contract.
I think didn't you mention that in an article you did for Scooby-Doo there?
When I reviewed the collection, the only ones that were missing were the Addams Family ones, and it was he was the holdout.
And let me guess, he was holding out for more money or something like that?
It's the only thing I could imagine him holding out for. I mean, I guess it's the only thing he's got going now because I don't think that John's doing a whole lot of acting these days.
Yeah, Ted Cassidy passed away in 1979 it would have been like 47. It looks, he was 46 and he died in January. I'm looking at his IMDb page right now.
Yeah, and John's 92 years old, so.
Yeah, 6'9", as I thought. He died from complications from heart surgery, according to this.
Yeah, that happens a lot to big guys like Ted.
Well,
their heart
okay, and I don't know if this was affecting him as well, but I know there was a particular disease or syndrome or whatever. Andre the Giant suffered from it. Former professional wrestler Jorge Gonzalez also suffered and died from it. Jorge Gonzalez, most fans would remember as Giant Gonzalez from his early 90s run in the WWE, also as Elegante in WCW. the disease, I believe, is called acromegaly.
Acromegaly. Well, that's more like the elephant man disease. Acromegaly is when your head swells.
Well, they said that that's basically what ended up killing Andre the Giant and Giant Gonzalez, is that they suffer. Basically it was just where like I don't know what gland it is. In fact, they say that Paul White, Big Show, may also have it, but with science as it is now, they've got it more under control with Paul White through medication. In other words, it's something where what I guess it's a growth hormone or whatever, the HGH, or the human growth hormone. For whatever reason, it just causes it causes your bones to just keep growing. At an extraordinary rate.
Yeah, and they're not dense enough to hold up under their own weight.
Yeah. Now, you're talking about, and I don't know if it's the same, it's quite the same thing, but what you're talking about with the facial one, that reminds me of Rocky Dennis.
Yeah, that's another good example of that one.
Yeah.
Who was in Mask.
Yeah, and who was portrayed by Eric Stoltz. And Cher and Sean Elliott were also Sean Elliott, and Estelle Getty are all in that.
That was one of the good films that came out of the 80s. We had a lot of good movies come out of that era.
Let's see. Well, I know you said you skipped dinner, so sure you want to go get something to eat. And we are getting close to the 2-hour mark now, so unless anybody else has anything they'd like to add, we can start wrapping up, and I'll probably go ahead and start doing the This Day in Each History segment, unless anybody wants to. Let's see. Woody was saying Ted Cut. Yeah, we already talked about that. He died at age 46 from complications of heart surgery. So we'll wait to see if anybody has anything they'd like to ask or add to the conversation. If not, then we'll probably just start to wrap things up. I thank you for being here, RJ.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
always enjoy stuff like this. You know that. All right. So anything else to be added? Looks like not. All right. So we'll start to wrap things up. I think it's done. Oh, wait. Oh, Woody just. Oh, no, I guess not. I thought for a moment there it looked like it was something was flashing ahead for me here, but let's see. Well, apparently Robert, because I just looked over at the YouTube screen here, asking if anybody had heard about the mass stabbings in Canada. I've heard a little bit about it, but I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to mainstream news. I think
I heard about it.
Yeah, I heard about it, but it's not like it's something we really talk a lot about, just because we look for more positive stuff to talk about here. We got enough people out there who are just bringing up negative stuff and talking and not to say that giving honest critique on certain situations doesn't sound a little negative at times, but
watch the George Peter Gatz's channel. They talk about that. Yeah, 10 dead, 18 wounded. Nobody had a gun.
Yeah, it was a mass stabbing, but the funny thing will be is the hard left will try to find a way to make it about gun control.
They'll start doing what they do in England. In England, they round up knives. They take knives away. They take knives off the street. Pretty soon they'll be taking rocks.
What are we gonna degrade you? If you go out and kill somebody with your bare hands, does that mean you're gonna have your hands cut off?
Oh, go back to those days? Yeah, okay.
Here's an idea: just give everybody a gun and let everybody duel.
I'll stay home that day, thanks. Yes, it's the purge. Well, they did that in Illinois now. The new safety laws that are out. They had a whole bunch of list of crimes that were They were no longer going to hold you for them. You could be arrested, taken in, charged with them, and then sent home to await trial date. And they included second-degree murder. Just okay. Well, we ain't got room for you. You go home now. We'll call you later. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Anyways, enough of that garbage. Enough of that garbage. But anyways,
walk us through the niche history so I can go.
All right. Yes, today is Monday, September 5th, Labor Day, and I hope everybody enjoyed our show tonight, in which we talked about some classic cartoons. So let's take a look back at this day in niche history and see what we have here for you. First off, I'd like to wish a happy 70th birthday to actor and voice actor Michael Horton. Now the name may not be quite as familiar to you, but some of the characters he's done will be, because Michael Horton, who's celebrating his 70th birthday today, among the characters he's voiced include Chip Chase from the G1 Transformers cartoon, Rick Jones from the 1982 Incredible Hulk cartoon. He did a guest voice on a G.I. Joe Real American Hero episode as Tommy Talltree, the younger brother of Airborne. And he also came back in the 90s there, in the mid 90s, and again another voice reference to Spider-Man the animated series. He came back and provided the voice for John Jameson in Spider-Man the animated series. So happy 70th birthday to Michael Horton, who of course voiced all those characters I just mentioned. So there we go. So RJ, you have anything you want to add to that? What I just said? What I just talked about?
I will just say that September 5th is an important day because on September 5th at 8 p.m. in 1855, Doc Emmett Brown started the Hill Valley Clock.
Okay.
Anyway,
on to our next piece of niche history, and this will be comics history. And RJ, you may know this, but this may be more in the back of your head. As on this date, 20 years ago today, back in 2002, the 100th issue of Savage Dragon from Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 2002, 20 years ago today. It sold for $8.95 and was 96 pages. Of course, he had Savage Dragon, who had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories in there, along with Mighty Man. So on this date, 20 years ago today, the 100th issue of Savage Dragon, 96 pages, $8.95, so $9 to get this comic at that time. Of course, it was probably larger than the usual comics of the time, anyways. But still, anything you want to add to that, RJ?
I want to add nothing to Savage Dragon. Thank you.
Tired of the liberal BS. That does remind me of a story I did a few months back where they actually put it into a comic where he lectured his sister about getting a vaccine, getting the COVID vaccine.
Yep.
You remember that story?
I remember it very well. I remember more Savage Dragon stories than I want to know.
I think he's not one of your favorite characters at this point.
No.
Has he always been that hardcore liberal?
I take more offense with the pornography aspect of it.
Okay. All right. Well, that much I didn't know. I have never read Savage Dragon, unfortunately. So
it used to be good, and then the new Savage Dragon was his son grown up all of a sudden, and then it was a porn book.
All right. So, anyways, okay. So now moving on to the last piece in niche history is on this date 15 years ago in 2007. during a tour in South Africa on this date in 2007, during a tour of Africa, Paul London and Brian Kendrick would defeat Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch for the WWE World Tag Team Championship. Now, this is the original WWF Tag Team Championship that would be renamed a number of times and would eventually be retired in 2010 to give more precedence to the WWE Tag Team Championship. But on this date, 15 years ago today, during a tour South Africa, Paul London and Brian Kendrick would defeat the late Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, who is currently in his second reign as NWA World Champion right now, for the World Tag Team Championship. So there we go. With all the history there. I thank everybody for being here. RJ, thank you for popping in. I hope you had fun, and it'd be a good time for us to head out. So I hope. Almost forgot. So quick to try to get out of here. Forgot to tell you guys what to look forward to the rest of the week. So we'll be back to doing our normal niche newscast tomorrow night. So hopefully we'll have some stories to go over for you tonight. Had a couple today, but as I said, with it being the holiday, I figured I'd give it an extra day to let the stories build up. And this Friday, of course, I will have Rick Piper on with me. We will be starting our May of 1939 coverage in comics history, looking at the works of DC. And one of the more notable stories we'll be looking at, of course, we'll be reading the Superman story that introduces the Ultra Humanite. So RJ, I know you'll be busy with your thing. You'll be doing the LCS show, right?
Oh yes, I will be.
But I hope you will at least try to, even if you can't catch it live. I hope you'll try to come back and watch it, because again, we'll be going over a little bit of the history with the Ultra Humanite. It's kind of funny. I think Ultra Humanite was originally going to be Superman's arch enemy, and then some artist errors and some other things that happened, and it ended up becoming Lex Luthor. So, but we'll talk more about that later in the week here. So, anyways, I thank everybody for being here. I thank you, RJ, and I will see you all. Hopefully, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.